Welcome to Norse Code, the #1 podcast for your Minnesota Vikings. I'm your host and producer. My name is James Pagashnik. Thank you guys so much for listening. And at the other end of the tin cannon string, we have our analyst and co-host. You know him from numerous blogs and podcasts around the internet, most notably from the Wide Left Substack. He is Mr. Useful Human, Arif Hassan. Arif? Well, this is awkward. Start any new podcasts lately?
More of a live stream that, once I exit the live stream, I don't have really control over what happens to the audio or the video. But it's just, I just stream live at 10 p.m. on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. So that's all that is. If someone turns that into a podcast, that's on them, not on me. So that's why. Is that a concern of yours?
Well, people keep telling me that they see you cavorting around town with this Luke Braun.
Cavorting? Well, first of all, I would never cavort with Luke Braun. A ridiculous accusation. But second, no, the live stream is an opportunity to make him stay up even later and to torture him more. So that's what that is. I don't like people talk about, podcast hosts and my, touch points with various podcast hosts or what. I don't know what that's about. I'm on a live stream. It's to torture Luke Braun, and whatever happens after I leave the live stream, that's not on me.
And it definitely does happen after dark. So there is that. Look, if you two are going to have a show called Locked On Vikings After Dark, you need smoking jackets. I'm sorry. The show will help pay. I will help pay for this. It's a visual medium. You both need velour red smoking jackets. I'm sorry. This is just going to have to be necessary.
Well, so long as someone foots the bill for the smoking jackets, the show is just getting off the ground. Yeah, monogrammed.
I think monogrammed is the next logical step.
Right, of course.
For those who are unaware, Luke and Arif have launched a new venture to apparently torture Luke. Luke would disagree with that notion, but
I don't know that he would.
Actually, you're probably right. The point is that they have a new YouTube show. It's worth checking out. They will finally be talking about Kyler Murray now that Kyler Murray has signed with the Vikings.
Wait, what?
Yeah, turns out the Minnesota Vikings now have another quarterback in the room. I'd say adult in the room, but we have a quarterback in the room. And we will discuss all sorts of things, including the Kyler Murray signing. We also have a bunch of free agency goings on. Jonathan Allen, Jalen Naylor, Ryan Wright. We will discuss, and a great mailbag as well. But before we start, again, thank you guys so much for listening to Norse Code. If you enjoy the show and would like to help us out financially, there's a couple of different ways you can do that. You can head over to patreon.com/NorseCode for $3.50 a month, or a little less for the year subscription. You get access to the Discord, bonus episodes, all of that. New bonus episode coming here real quick. You can also go to paypal.me/NorseCode for a one-time donation, or you can go to norsecode.threadless.com for any number of wonderful pieces of Norse Code merchandise. We got the shirts, got the hats, baby onesies. If you need a towel, we got a towel. We don't have a body pillow yet, but we can work on that. Check it out, including the Hell League merch as well. All right. We're busting. Yes, we're busting through through all the merch stuff because we have a big piece of news.
Oh, I just blusted.
I blusted. Kyler Murray, Minnesota Viking. We had discussed the possibility of this last episode, almost the inevitability. It seemed to make almost too much sense. And while the Steelers appeared to be a possible dark horse for this, Kyler Murray signs with the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah. So it was kind of interesting following this story because it had become kind of the dominant storyline even before the NFL Combine, when all of these rumors emerge and we get a good sense of what's going on. In fact, I had also heard that the Vikings had put out feelers, right, to Geno Smith, which I think I mentioned on this pod before. And my understanding was that Kyler Murray was extremely interested in becoming a Minnesota Viking, whereas I don't know that Gino had any specific team that he wanted to sign with. And the Vikings were probably just interested in both. I don't know that they had a strong desire for either. But the steam picked up during the combine that it would be Kyler Murray and not Geno Smith. I don't know why. Maybe because Geno would require a trade or something. I don't know. But the Cardinals then announced that they're going to cut Kyler Murray, at which point we hear no news for the next several days about what's happening, and they hadn't cut him yet. They could cut him at any time. They don't have to wait until the league year, but they did. I don't think that there were any contract triggers that occurred, but they did. And then Kyler traveled to Minnesota, presumably ate at a steakhouse. I don't think I'm not familiar. Murray's doesn't have kids' meals, right?
They do not. I can confirm they do not have a kids' meal.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So don't know how they handled that, but or no, they were probably at Manny's, right? That's the place that they always go to. Sorry, I get the two confused sometimes. I prefer Murray's, but yeah. So especially after we heard the news about Geno Smith being moved. What was it, to the Jets again, right? Just like that's hilarious. That kind of just made it essentially inevitable. But Murray did not commit to signing. And an Arizona Cardinals radio host, later also confirmed by Tom Pelissero, said that Murray is considering other teams where he might not be the 2026 starter if they don't have plans for 2027. And then, when asked to come up with some examples of teams that could be, kind of only came up with the Rams, which sure. But yeah, it felt like a pretty weak bluff. But yeah, Murray shows up, presumably is playing hard to get so that he can get leverage on what he wants, which obviously is not contract value, right? Because he's signing a 1-year minimum deal. And he's not going to get more money if he signs for more, right? Because that's just going to be offset by how much the Cardinals owe him. But probably assurances about competition, maybe assurances about players or teammates that he wants, or some level of control over the playbook. I don't know, right? But probably there were some other things that he wanted to make sure of before he signed outright with the Vikings. But it seems like he wanted to be a Viking. Learning now that he is essentially a lifelong Vikings fan, became a Vikings fan in 2004 because of the Culpepper incredible season, Randy Moss. Co-MVP that year. I think they he tied with Peyton Manning for MVP. Either way, that was an outstanding season. And that kind of doomed him to that whole deal. But yeah, that the news cycle ended up making it fairly obvious, right, that Murray and the Vikings would kind of be the pair going forward.
It is kind of, it's odd that something that this inevitable just actually happened.
I think the last time I remember, it was when Trey Waynes was projected to the Vikings in 2016. Was it 2016? In the draft at pick 11, and everyone had Trey Waynes to the Vikings, and it was that's the only time it was at that something that certain had happened. The Kirk Cousins free agency thing wasn't nearly as certain. Picking JJ wasn't as certain. Obviously, letting Case Keenum go kind of was, but I don't recall, Teddy to the Vikings wasn't as certain. I don't recall a single high profile move that was this well telegraphed in the past decade or so.
I mean, even Darnold to Seattle, it still felt like there was a little bit of maybe.
Right. But, and they offered a contract. There was more going on. Yeah.
Kyler Murray, Minnesota Viking. We talked last episode, so if you missed it, we'll probably go over a little bit here as far as his tendencies, things that you could expect from Kyler Murray. Realistically speaking, this is the floor on this is much higher than JJ McCarthy, I think is the nicest way of putting this.
Yeah, and when you think of Kyler Murray, you don't necessarily think of a high floor quarterback, which is fair. but like we've seen how low the floor has the ability to go. And it turns out having a floor is better than constantly digging down through the basement. So certainly, despite being kind of a volatile quarterback by nature, has a higher floor. And I think a lot of people have come to the understanding that when a quarterback does have running ability and escapability, which is important because it feels like McCarthy has running ability, but not a ton of escapability, that adds to their floor. Whereas before we'd kind of thought of running quarterbacks, this is like years ago, we thought of running quarterbacks as volatile, right? Because you never know what they're going to do. But it turns out being able to just generate 8 yards when everybody is like covered that's an example of a floor, right? So he does provide that. His success rate has been pretty decent. I think Mina Kimes put out a little graphic or put together or asked ESPN to put together a graphic, which they put up on the screen. But the graphic said that his success rate over the last 2 years in the Drew Petzing offense, in former Vikings receivers coach Drew Petzing, was like 10th in the NFL, whereas the Vikings quarterbacks last year ranked 28th in success rate. So probably better than you think he was over the past 2 years. That's not to say he was amazing. I think by like EPA per dropback, according to ESPN, his EPA per dropback was 13th over those 2 years. If you include just 2025, which he only played like a couple of games before being shut down for injury and then also benched, which is not a good sign, he drops a little bit lower. And when you take a look at like quarterback rankings around like the NFL media landscape, whether it is over at The Ringer with Stephen Ruiz or I think Adam Rank does them, or Scott, I don't know, over at NFL Network, or, there's a couple of places that do quarterback rankings like week to week. And Kyler kind of lands in the 17 to 20 range typically. He did this season. And his EPA per dropback is a little bit better than that. But yeah, I think so I've been on a couple of podcasts. I was on the Heat the Call podcast. I was on Marcus's That Franchise Guy podcast. And I'd mentioned a couple of times that like Kyler is in the tier that like low end top 12-ish quarterbacks are, which is something that we had kind of discussed a little bit on our last episode. And, when you're going through the comments or seeing how people respond to that, people were flabbergasted that I would say that. And I think the problem is like twofold. One, statistically, he's actually pretty close to that, despite what we would think. But like two, I think people are kind of forgetting the other caveat to that, which is that there is not much discrimination between 11th and 20th among these quarterbacks. And so with just a little bit of improvement, he is a top 12 quarterback. Not comfortably a top 12 quarterback, but it's there possibly if that can all be kind of worked out. We talked a little bit about system fit. I'm going to write a bigger piece about that. But what's interesting is that Kevin O'Connell, so they held their presser like right before in fact, they're still holding it as we're recording. But Kevin O'Connell says, in response to a question about system fit, which I think is the question that's going to dominate the offseason, in the same way like pure progression versus coverage reads dominated the back end of the JJ McCarthy experience. Kevin O'Connell said, when you actually dive in and really study Kyler's experience at the position, you do see a lot of really great qualities that fit into some of the things we ask our quarterbacks to do. I think Kyler's an accurate player. I think he's learned to play with really solid fundamentals in the pass game. He can make all the throws. I think that he's saying stuff that is all kind of technically true, but when kind of wrapped together presents a picture that I would say is not quite accurate. He does do a lot of things that fit the system. He also does a lot of things intuitively that, in my opinion, as a guy who's not an offensive coordinator or a coach, don't fit the system all that well. And again, I'll dive into it a little bit more, but when you take a look at stuff like time to throw and depth of target on longer throws and the response to pressure and kind of like the tendency to hit the middle of the field or target those intermediate digs or whatever, right? he's not doing those things, and some of that might be because of what Cliff Kingsbury asked him to do. That was a very high screen game offense. Like the percentage of throws behind the line of scrimmage were really high. 2021 was probably his best year, and that was a very high percentage screen game. And he doesn't do a lot of intermediate, and he did a little bit of deep ball, but just not a ton of deep ball. His depth of target is pretty low relative to everything else. And then you take a look at how the offense changed when Drew Petzing took over, and it's very similar to an average NFL offense in a lot of the characteristics I just described, like in time to throw, like in depth of target. In fact, I've charted it out. Again, that article hopefully will be up maybe tomorrow afternoon. The idea is tomorrow morning, but who's to say? So I've got some questions about this, right? And we talked a little bit about it before, and I'll talk about it more in the piece. But I find it intriguing that that's kind of the way that they're approaching this. Instead of saying something like, there's a bunch of really interesting dynamic stuff that he can do, and we're going to incorporate that into our offense. I say instead of, I don't know what the full answer to that question is. I'm reading tweets, but I haven't seen anybody tweet out a quote from Kevin O'Connell that would suggest that his approach to the system fit is to expand his understanding of the system, which is not necessarily a criticism. I just find it interesting to go out and grab a quarterback that is not kind of your picture perfect example of a quarterback that you might dream up for a Kevin O'Connell offense, and then not talk about ways to incorporate some of the other stuff that Kyler does well. I think we over leverage our conversation in coaches. We talk about that a little bit too much, about adapting your scheme to the players that you have. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to do. I'm not going all the way in the other direction, but I think we focus too much on it because coaches develop their schemes for good reason, and they interlock in ways that are really useful for developing a full season-long plan for how that offense works and integrates with the other 10 players on the field that become really difficult to adapt to in ways that are effective. So I don't want to emphasize too much this point about him not mentioning this or bringing this up. But I assume that there will be some changes, right? I think we're going to see more read options, right? Because he is a very effective runner, both as a designed quarterback runner and as a read option quarterback, which are not necessarily the same thing. Like Michael Vick is a great example of this. Astounding scrambler, pretty good-ish on designed runs, and not good at read options at all. At least in the NFL. I did not watch his like Virginia Tech stuff. But yeah, I think is going to be something to monitor to see how they change those things. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see kind of how that all breaks out. I assume this makes Justin Jefferson a little bit happier. The Vikings have said, publicly, the Vikings have not said anything about a quarterback competition. There was a question asked in the press conference, and he said, it's not like time to get into that or something like that. What was it? I don't believe we have to name one of those currently. Sure, fine. You don't have to name a starting quarterback. That would suggest maybe a quarterback competition. Insiders have been tweeting out that it's meant to be a quarterback competition. I have heard word that they've told the quarterbacks it's a competition. No, it's not. I mean, JJ McCarthy wasn't named the starter until like August, right? And like we know that wasn't the competition, right? Like so, I'm kind of in the same, boat where it's like, well, yeah, you can call it a competition, and maybe from a PR standpoint, it would make the most sense to instill confidence in the fan base to say, well, Murray wasn't just handed the job; he earned the job, that kind of stuff. But like, yeah, that's kind of what the deal is. I think if the Vikings can find ways to maximize Murray with better pass protection than what he was used to seeing in Arizona, which did improve a little bit, and with better receivers than what he saw in Arizona, which also did improve a little bit by the end. Say a little bit. I mean, like Marvin Harrison Jr. is quite good, but
but that's a thing,
right? Yeah,
and it's worth mentioning because the other problem with this, is that he's leaving Arizona basically as a pariah. And you didn't see a lot of Kyler Murray last year for two reasons. One, because they outright benched him at the end of the year. And two, the Cardinals don't play primetime games. This is the thing. They played two last year. They played one the year before. It's worth... have to triple check that last, but they played two last year. anytime you saw Marvin Harrison Jr. on the sidelines moping, or being told like oh, he's got bad body, like it was always directly implied that it was because of his quarterback play.
Right. Yeah.
Going to him.
Yeah.
You haven't seen a lot of Kyler because you haven't seen a lot of Kyler. Like, it's kind of been designed like that. So he's leaving Arizona in a terrible situation. The fact that they've decided to just roll with that quarterback this year instead of draft, like, that's astounding to me. But like, they're doing this. Kyler is being paid basically everything from Arizona, and here we are. We have this interesting environment for him. We have one of the greatest receivers in the league. We have a quarterback coach that is supposed to be this whisperer, and continually just finds himself in situations now where this is just what he does. Can Kevin O'Connell get a year of like a stability quarterback? Like, please.
I do find it kind of funny that is like, you know how for like a while, like Bill Parcells would like turn a team around and then leave.
Yes. Like, this is just all Kevin O'Connell does is flip quarterbacks now. Like, it's I'm not pining for the days of Kirk Cousins or anything, but just like, this is, so this is the thing you can do? Great. We're going to do this every year now.
Just sign a guy for somewhere between $1 and $15 million and receive a third-round compensatory pick 2 years later. It's the ultimate investment.
Look, anytime you can do this 3 years in a row, you have to do it. Like, why is this a concern? But Kyler comes cheap. Kyler comes with a lot of potential. Kyler also comes with an interesting stain on him from Arizona and from the fans and from the ownership and from the team that you got to overcome. But like, he's coming in here with a lot of baggage.
Yeah. So one of the things that and we're going to be making jokes about this all season long and presumably throughout the off season before it. The Call of Duty stuff, right? First of all, that agent error 100% should not have let that find its way into the contract before it became public. You got to play video games way less. Don't put that in the contract. Why would you let them put that in the contract? But before they ended up taking it out of the contract, by the way, but because of public pressure or embarrassment or something, I don't know. But
film study is a thing that is included in all contracts.
Yeah, it's normal. Yeah. It's normal to tell your quarterback to do work. Anyway, there's a quote from him in December of 2021 in the New York Times. Again, his best season to date was 2021. I think I was blessed with the cognitive skills to just go out there and just see it before it happens, Murray said. I'm not one of those guys that's going to sit there and kill myself watching film. I don't sit there for 24 hours and break down this team and that team and watch every game because in my head, I see so much. Buddy, that's not good.
Remember the term situational masters and how like that was like the film study thing. Like I'm envisioning just him walking into TCO and Kevin O'Connell being like, "Sit down."
Right. Yeah. So the thing that is like really surprising to me is how much Kevin O'Connell has pursued these quarterbacks that have been known to have this kind of work ethic, right? The whole deal with Kirk Cousins is that he only was able to ever become a Division I and then NFL quarterback because of how monomaniacal he was about studying. It became homework and then business, right? Like he had an office next to the GM in Washington, right? Like he was a studier. Right? Joshua Dobbs, a studier. Now, you might not like perceive that from his playing style, but a studier, a deep studier. Nick Mullins, a studier. Sam Darnold, a studier, right? The kind of like intuitive dummy ball kind of stuff where like, again, there's some quarterbacks, it's like, well, you're Josh Allen. Fine. But like some quarterbacks, you're just like, hey, you got to like crack open this playbook and see what's going on in here. it is very interesting to me that's the quarterback. And again, this was 5 years ago. He could have changed pretty dramatically, and maybe he did, right? But this was before he signed the extension that had that language in it, right? And I am a little bit concerned about the way that he sees the field. One of the things that, you spoke to this Marvin Harrison problem, right? Where he's got like bad body language on the sideline, and we're all kind of like, I think I know what that is. When you look at Marvin Harrison on film, right? You take a look at the All-22, you see him open a lot. Now that doesn't mean that by itself, like you can't just like look at a receiver, see him open a lot and say, hey, the quarterback is missing him. Now, if it's happening a ton, maybe that's a problem of offensive design. Maybe it's a problem with the quarterback. Maybe the receiver's actually running the wrong route and is just intuitively finding space, like a Chad Ochocinco kind of, or I guess Chad Johnson is his name. Like it could be that he's intuiting the space for the routes, not running the play as designed. Maybe that's, whatever, right? But when you kind of break down how these plays are meant to be designed in traditional NFL offenses, which again, that's what Drew Petzing is doing, he either should be the alert based off of what we're seeing, or he is in the progression and Murray has moved off of him, but now Marvin Harrison is upset that he's not getting the ball, and rightly so. So I am a little bit concerned about that because of how much O'Connell designs the offense such that the quarterback goes through all of the progressions in a way that's kind of built off of the film study that you have to do. Again, 5 years ago, but this has been a persistent issue. Now, if you take a look at Murray's play over the past couple of years, I would say his ability to kind of read opposing defenses has improved. And that would maybe suggest that he has decided that he is no longer the guy who said that, and he is studying film. And by the way, the New York Times piece that comes from is I don't do athlete features all that often. So, and this is kind of why, not because maybe the player will turn out to be bad, but it is just a celebration of Kyler Murray, this intuitive athlete, the entire piece is. And he never stops to ask, like, hey, is this going to be a problem? Which would be a really difficult thing to ask, again, coming off of his best season. But like in the piece, he is in high school. He's like a junior, rising senior in high school or something like that. And he goes to this exhibition match where Cristiano Ronaldo is playing against, I don't know, the Houston Dynamo or something like that. And he turns to his grandfather or like some kind of parental figure and asks, how long would it take me to get that good? Talking, of course, about Cristiano Ronaldo, right? And his grandfather says, with a lot of practice, 4 or 5 years. And Murray is like, I think I could do it faster. And the piece is like, it's telling you, like it says, it takes pains to be like, no, he's not being arrogant. That's just who he is. And there's like a ton of little vignettes like that where he picks up a sport intuitively, or he's got this easy confidence about him, but it's not arrogance. It does have a moment where the 2019 season, his rookie year, where he is overwhelmed a little bit by the NFL and how tough it is. But his intuitiveness as an athlete, his feel for the game has saved him once again, and he doesn't have to watch film. I'm really curious about how much of that has persisted, right? And the Vikings are almost certainly aware of this kind of thing. I would be shocked if they weren't. NFL teams do all kinds of digging. And so if I have access to this information, they have access to that information and maybe more, right? Maybe they've learned that he has resolved these particular concerns, but that has to be part of the conversation that they've had with him over like they say they cast a wide net, and maybe they talked to more than just Murray and Geno. Maybe they also, talked to Mac Jones, even though technically they can't. Maybe they talked to Aaron Rodgers, even though I think technically they can, actually. I don't think he's under contract. But like
maybe they contacted Cliff Kingsbury and were like, hey, just a question. Did you ever do the Jamarcus Russell thing where you gave him a blank DVD?
Well, here's the thing. That's why he's a good fit for Cliff Kingsbury, because in college, Kingsbury didn't have a playbook. He would not distribute a playbook to players. They didn't study off of a playbook. So that's actually the perfect head coach for him, because that's not what they did. Now, in the NFL, there was a playbook, but it was very simple. So he can't actually do the Jamarcus Russell thing to Kyler, because when he took over, he didn't have a playbook.
That's remarkable. I forgot about that.
Yeah. It's just like, and I encourage people to look that up. It's like a relic of the way air raid is taught. But it's like a bunch of like playground football type stuff. But yeah, and that's another concern, right? Like he went from a fake NFL offense, the Kingsbury one, where it was like a lot of screens, not a ton of plays, to a real NFL offense where he did look better. And now he's going to go to an offense that does have a different like contour to it, right? Like a different shape. And again, I'll have graphics up over at Wide Left when I finish writing this piece, but like it is a substantially different offense. Like if you like charted elements like time to throw, depth of target, rate of throws over the middle or to the side, like whatever, right? Like all of these elements that we would talk about in terms of passing game, screen rate, etc. You could build out a shape of what the average NFL offense looks like, and then you could chart what the Kevin O'Connell offenses look like over the past 4 years and what the Kingsbury offenses have looked like in Arizona and in Washington. And those two offenses are remarkably far apart from the NFL average offense in 2025. I would imagine, I didn't do this for every offense, but I would imagine the only other offense that is that far apart, or I guess two, would be the Pittsburgh Steelers with Aaron Rodgers and the Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson. And those would probably be the two offenses that are as far apart, maybe a little bit further apart from the NFL average. But these are extremes in terms of, and they're on opposite sides of those extremes. And so like when you take a look at the rate of throws that occur within like the 6 to 12 yard window, right? Kind of like not quite intermediate, but not quite like shallow, right? Like some of your developing slants, your 3-step throws, your quick outs, stuff like that. Like the rate of throws there, the Vikings throw that way more. The Cardinals throw it way less because those are screen passes for them. In the NFL, obviously, that's what it is, right? And then you take a look at the intermediate throws, like 18, 19, 20 yards. So like, the fact that the Vikings run this kind of supercharged, I'm not going to say it's a complex offense, but one that does require a level of commitment to the principles at play. And they're grabbing a quarterback whose whole deal has not been to embrace those elements and whose cognitive load has not required that he do a lot of reading of defenses because of the high rate of screens and the offenses that he's been in and stuff like that. How many alerts that he's had in his offense where it's just like, well, if the safety cheats, then you get to throw deep and that's it. Or he's not reading the play and he's scrambling around in the backfield waiting for somebody to open up because of scramble rules and then throwing that, which I mean, some of those throws are dots. They're gifts, right? They're outstanding throws. I'm curious kind of how all of that will come together. So I talked to, so when this quote came out, I talked to somebody who's like familiar with figuring out kind of like the quarterbacks who can see well, like in the way that Kyler is describing, right? To just kind of see everything as it breaks down and have a good intuition for what's happening, right? As we would imagine maybe college Johnny Manziel, as we would imagine Kyler, as we might imagine some of these other kind of more intuitive players like Josh Allen, right? And I talked to somebody who works with football players specifically in that context, who has data on this. And he was like, look, a lot of NFL quarterbacks have that. Like by the time you get to the NFL, essentially is what this guy is saying. By the time you get to the NFL, most of those quarterbacks that have been there for a couple of years have that. All of their eyes can move that fast. The ones that are good study. That's it. That has to be the distinguishing factor. So I just hope that he's kind of picked that up. But that is going to be the primary concern, right? Is kind of how does he know how to watch film, which is like one of the things that like Division I quarterbacks learn is that they didn't know how to watch film in high school. And so they're learning it in a new way. And then when those quarterbacks become like scouts, they realize they didn't know how to watch film in college, right? And so I would imagine also that occurs in the NFL where it's like, okay, I watched film in college, but no one taught me. and it was substantially different than it was in high school. And now, once again, it is substantially different than it's going. So does he know how to watch film? I'm not saying that as someone who does know. I don't know how a quarterback coach or how a quarterback room watches film. But that is a concern from the outside looking in that I would want an answer to. Does he know how to watch film like an NFL quarterback does? I don't know. It's kind of curious. We'll see.
So we have Kyler Murray. I'd like to just quote the Defector article that came out a couple of days ago from Drew McGarry, because it's worth remembering. Like the Hail Murray moment that he had just seemed like such an awesome thing. Like the fact that he threw the ball up, he had to watch on the screen to see whether or not it was caught.
He threw into triple coverage, right, against Buffalo or something.
Just remarkable. But the line is, the Hail Murray was supposed to be the beginning of something, not the apex of it. And that's how it's felt. For the past couple of years, it's just been this odd, slow decline. He got a tremendous paycheck. And as a result of that check, he is now a Minnesota Viking for no money, which is great. Look, yeah. You make that deal 10 times out of 10, and it keeps Aaron Rodgers out of the facility.
Right? Yeah, it's a perfect repellent.
Great, fantastic, love that for you. This is going to be really interesting as far as training camp looks, and as far as first couple of games go. This should be real interesting. I can only see this going one of two ways. This is not one of those, maybe Max Brosmer comes in and does something, or, Carson Wentz. Does this mean that you no longer have to worry about the specter of Carson Wentz, or is he just going to be third string?
So what was interesting is that there was a rumor for a while that he was going to be a Jet or something like that.
Yeah, they were talking about the guy, the coach absolutely wants him over there. Really? Why?
Yeah, because they ended on bad, because that's Steichen, right? So they ended on bad terms, genuinely. So I was shocked.
Everyone lost their job that was associated with Carson Wentz for a couple of years there. The only person who didn't was Kevin O'Connell. And the man nearly drove him.
Nearly
drove him. It was absolutely the Black Knight from Monty Python. There was nothing left of Carson Wentz. He might as well have gotten sacked so hard that his liver just exploded, and they'd have to take him in. That's the only way that he would have gone out at that point. It was amazing. So yeah, Carson Wentz. Maybe not a Viking. Maybe Arif doesn't have to cover Carson Wentz this year.
Maybe.
We'll see. He's going to be one of those camp guys. It'll be great. We talked a lot about it on the last episode, so we don't need to totally rehash this. As far as tendencies, plans, as far as throws in the middle of the field and everything.
Sure. Yeah.
So we don't need to go super in depth. Check out episode 601 for more information on that. But this is good. This is different, and maybe it makes the team better. It certainly doesn't hurt the cap, but we'll see. We have some fun things about Kyler that we get to talk about in the offseason. Good.
Great. We've outlined the talking point schedule. We're so back.
I can't wait for June when we're sitting talking about a new DLC came out, so now we have to worry about whether or not he's going to be playing this or spending his money on skins for things. It'll be great. All right. We've talked about Kyler Murray. We've got a ton of Kyler stuff in the mailbag, so we're going to move on to some free agent stuff. We do have a reasonable signing here. James Pierre is now a Minnesota Viking.
Yeah, he'll be an interesting one to watch. 7th round pick out of FAU. Technically has not solved the Vikings' tall cornerback absence because he is 6 foot even. And you have to be just a little bit above. You have to be 6'001", 6 1/8. But no, he is 6 flat. But 31 and 3/4 inch arm, so he's got some length. The tallest non-Dwight McGlothern cornerback on the roster. 7th round pick who was primarily a special teamer, worked his way up to be a primary backup, got a lot of playing time this last year for Pittsburgh, both because I think Joey Porter was hurt, and then obviously Darius Slay was also hurt. So we got a fair amount of snaps from him. I think 255 coverage snaps, if PFF/Teamworks is to be believed. On those snaps, he played very well. He was targeted quite a lot, but led the NFL in completion rate when targeted and in passer rating when targeted. And part of passer rating when targeted is a relatively high-ish interception rate, which can skew things. But if you remember, the person who intercepted Carson Wentz at the end, preventing the 4th quarter comeback in Dublin, was James Pierre. So welcomed with open arms. Love that. Great ball skills, great drive, not a ton of athleticism. By drive, I mean like click and close, like his ability to drive to the ball when the ball is in the air and he knows that the ball is in the air. His ability to kind of get to it is really high. He's got like one of the highest contact rates on the ball in coverage in the NFL over the past couple of years. He's got a really good understanding of like how the trajectory of the ball is going to fly through the air, but he doesn't have a ton of athleticism. So interesting to see what he'll do. The Vikings have fielded a number of cornerbacks in the Brian Flores system who don't have a ton of athleticism, but are meant to be high IQ, like late career Stephon Gilmore and late career Shaquille Griffin. Cool. I'm all for it. Interesting. Hopefully he's not handed the job, but I would imagine he would win the job. Again, another low snap corner, just like Isaiah Rodgers was last year, hopefully a little bit more stable with a higher floor than Rodgers. And then you've got kind of a reasonable 3. Maybe you'll add some competition in the draft.
Another one that is worth mentioning here is Jonathan Allen is now going to the Bengals.
Yeah, apparently they pursued him super aggressively after the Vikings cut him. I'm going to assume that they pursued him super aggressively before the Vikings cut him, which I don't believe those players are subject to legal tampering rules, right? Because they're not impending free agents. Either way, I have to imagine that in the grand tradition of NFL free agency, they contacted Jonathan Allen's agent before that and tried to work out a deal. So he leaves Minnesota to become a Cincinnati Bengal. He joins, who just became a Bengal, some pass rusher that's not Trey Hendrickson, but yeah, sure. Why not?
Sure. Next one, Javon Hargrave to the Packers.
Sure. Why not? I don't know how strong Hargrave's market was, but, he's somebody that like, and we've seen this throughout the season, but like, when you go through his like PFF statistics, it was Boy Mafe that joined the Bengals. That was it. When you go through the PFF statistics, he looks really good. His pass rush grade's pretty good. He's got a really high pass rush win rate. He's got a really good pressure rate. And then you'll notice that his snaps are declining over the course of the season. I wonder why that is. And then you realize he got straight up benched for a UDFA. Not even a UDFA, a veteran body, like a camp body. Okay. Hargrave, pretty talented pass rusher. I think he was miscast as an A-gap defender for the Vikings, just like he was in San Francisco. Both teams made this mistake. So if the Packers treat him as a 3 technique, that could be a bit of an issue, but you can run on him. And that was kind of his deal. So, yeah, nice to see it kind of go in the other direction, whereas instead of the Vikings signing a former Packer, it's a Packer signing a former Viking. Good for you.
Jalen Naylor is going to the Raiders. I look forward to whoever is throwing the ball to you. Good luck.
But, Fernando Mendoza, Naylor, come on down.
Why not? Here's the one that bothers me, and it bothers Arif for different reasons. Ryan Wright to the Saints.
Okay. I don't understand the Saints thinking here. You have a theory, which I like.
I do.
I don't understand the Saints thinking here. $7 million guaranteed. to Ryan Wright, who's had one good season as a punter. At first, when I heard that he had signed with the Saints, I was like, Vikings couldn't compete for Ryan Wright? You couldn't, after he finally had a good season, you couldn't retain him? What's up with that? And then I saw like $3.5 million. And I was like, oh, okay. You know what? Good for you, Ryan.
Yeah.
And the Australian dollar conversion rate has to go pretty crazy, right? So that's even more money back home.
So good for Ryan Wright. All the best to him. Enjoyed his punting last year. All of that. Here's my theory as to why Ryan Wright is a Saint. Mickey Loomis was sitting in his office in New Orleans, hot, annoyed, and had probably an unlit cigar in his mouth. Mm-hmm. Sitting at his desk going, you know what bothers me is the fact that every time the Vikings lose, or every time the Saints lose to the Vikings in the playoffs, it seems to have a nickname. You know what? I'm going to overpay for a punter today. Bring me a Ryan Wright. Slams his fist on the table and goes, you know what? This is it. We're not paying anyone this year. We are so like over our heads in debt. But you know what? We're paying for a punter this year. We're going to double pay for a punter this year for no good reason. That's why Ryan Wright is over as a Saint this year.
It's funny because like they had twisted themselves up so much in the cap. They had believed our argument that the cap isn't real. What fools you are to believe us.
Suckers.
And got to a point where they had to cut Thomas Morstead for cap casualty reasons. Like that's, come on, man. And now they have, I believe Ryan Wright is the second highest paid punter coming out of free agency, just after Jordan Stout. Okay, man, that's a choice to make. It makes him like fifth highest paid in the NFL right now, on a per year basis, and like that's like Michael Dixon and Logan Cook and AJ Cole, like guys who've made like multiple Pro Bowls. So okay.
Ryan Wright. I will miss Ryan Wright's punting, but I will not miss the cost of it. That is so much money.
Interesting choice. Yeah.
Yeah. We did have a couple of re-signings, including Aaron Jones and Eric Wilson. Originally, we had reported that Aaron Jones was going to be cut. He has taken a pay cut, and he will be returning along with Eric Wilson.
Yeah, so I guess they had been negotiating with him the whole time. They had drastically, from my understanding, cut his base salary and reduced his cap hit pretty substantially. Sounds like he wanted to stay in Minnesota, which is great. He's a glue guy, and also, unlike most glue guys, pretty good at football, at least when he's healthy. I don't know. Like, one of the problems that I had trying to figure out what the Vikings were going to do at running back is like, one, there were no running backs in free agency. It was like Rashad White, who, by the way, is already signed with a team now. So tough, right? But two, Aaron Jones did have kind of the unique combination of a guy who is both good in pass protection and a good pass catcher, which you don't have a ton of those running backs. And given that you have Jordan Mason, you don't really need the between the tackles guy, which is often where a lot of your good pass catchers or pass blockers come from. So it was kind of like an interesting problem to have to solve. Like you would probably, be able to figure out the pass catching stuff, but the pass blocking stuff is going to be really tough, like that kind of stuff. So interesting. And I don't hate it, especially because there's not a huge, cost associated, with him anymore, which is kind of like the primary issue.
So you'd expect like a 5th or 6th round flyer on a running back this year?
Yeah, for sure. Like to compete with Xavier Scott and to have maybe potentially some kind of long-term solution at the problem. Just like you always want to, especially when your running back room is getting a little bit older. I mean, I guess technically it's always getting older, but like when it is trending is having a bell cow back that is a little bit older than the rest of the NFL. Yeah, that's something that you want to maybe put some maybe low-end investments in.
Well, let's hit the mailbag. Luke Braun asks our first question. Can you guys make sure you're done by 10 p.m. Central?
Nope.
Nope. Absolutely not. Beef Brewski asks, if the Vikings sign Murray, how much overlap is there between the offense you'd build for him and the one you'd eventually want for McCarthy? Both have rocket arms, both can scramble irresponsibly, and both are comfortable making off-schedule throws. Would tailoring the system to Murray now actually set up McCarthy better down the line? And since Murray's style and temperament seem a lot closer to McCarthy's, is he a sneaky good mentor, rather than forcing him into Kevin O'Connell's preferred pocket passer mold?
I wouldn't say he's a good mentor.
He's a pariah
right.
at this point.
Is he a potential model of play for McCarthy? Also no-ish, but if he follows like a Kyler Murray trajectory where he gets a lot better and he just does a bunch of stuff that drives your offensive coordinator wild, that would be a huge improvement. So like you could do worse in terms of like career trajectories or models of play. But like in terms of like a guy you want in your quarterback room teaching your quarterback, I have open questions that I don't have enough information to resolve yet, but I do have enough information to ask them, you know? So the rocket arm thing is kind of funny because they do both have strong arms, and they both have, I would argue, not great mechanics. One interesting element that I found looking for like other people's breakdowns of McCarthy, this Chase Daniel video popped up on YouTube, like a 20-minute video breaking down one of Kyler Murray's games, and he was talking about the clean mechanics Murray had, which surprised me because I think that he throws with that level of speed and some accuracy despite his mechanics. Like he doesn't, like his like shoulders and hips are locked together, so there's not generating a ton of torque. I think Luke mentioned that also on the Locked On Vikings After Dark show. He also flails his leg, not nearly as much as McCarthy does. Like McCarthy brings his like hip with him, his body with him, and it spins him. But Murray also kind of does that. But yeah, the Chase Daniel breakdown was like kind of interesting, and he's like breaking down this game, and McCarthy, in fairness to Daniel, is killing it in this game. And I was like, hold on, this is like kind of crazy. I don't remember I don't remember Murray playing the Rams this year. So what's going on? And I looked it up, and the game that he is pulling up is a game from like 2023. Like, what are we doing? It was Murray's highest graded game in his career by PFF and his highest adjusted net yards per attempt in his career. And he is the only game he's had with a perfect passer rating. So yeah, if you pull his best game, he's going to look really good. If you want like just the feel good version of Murray, I highly encourage you to watch that Chase Daniel video. But it's so weird. A lot of his stuff is off schedule and stuff like that. But like that, I think is like when you've got a quarterback that has that kind of feel, you kind of don't need a model to tell you how to do it, right? Like Mahomes just does it. Like he didn't like watch Alex Smith and go, oh, an absurd like vision to think of like I learned how to improvise from Alex Smith, right? Murray didn't watch Colt McCoy do it and go, oh, right? It's just kind of inherent in that. As for how you would build that offense, maybe kind of bridge the gap between the static offenses that we're kind of used to with O'Connell and whatever Murray does, you know, there's probably some overlap there, but I do think McCarthy's best path forward is to be a structured quarterback who's got ability to win in an unstructured environment, as opposed to the other way around, which is what Murray is. So I don't think that there's a lot you could do there. Like, yeah, you bring him out of the pocket a little bit more. You've got a little bit more read option. And those are elements that you probably want to incorporate for McCarthy. But I don't think that there's a ton of overlap between McCarthy's ideal offense, which would require throws over the middle, would require on-time throws and stuff like that, where he can scramble and improvise, and not where you kind of create opportunities where you're focusing on that improvisational capability, surviving long enough to get to scramble rules, creating a bunch of 3x1 sets so that you've got alert all the time. Like, you want to build a real offense, I think. So no, but also I do think that that's kind of funny.
Here's a really interesting question I like here. Sweet Skull asks, how does Kyler Murray statistically compare to Matthew Stafford when he transitioned from the Lions to the Rams?
This was so interesting because I was like, this is a ridiculous question. And then I looked it up, and it's very similar. Time to throw is very similar. I think it's like 0.07 seconds apart in time to throw. The EPA per play is very similar. Murray's last 2 years versus Stafford's final 2 years, 2019, 2020, with the Detroit Lions, very similar EPA per play, very similar success rate. There are a couple of differences. One, Stafford has just a much faster ball. And so like his average throw speed is like 33 miles per hour, whereas like Murray's is 30. And that is a pretty significant gap. I don't think that that's a marker of quality. That's a stylistic thing. McCarthy's is very high. It's like also 33. It's because he doesn't have any touch, but like that's another element to kind of don't read too much into average velocity for the ball. And depth of target was pretty substantially different, but not as much as you would think, given what we know about Stafford. But it was deeper for Stafford than it was for Murray. But like statistically, there are more similarities than I would have thought. And one of the interesting things is that with the Lions, Stafford was this like under center, would rarely get in the shotgun. And he was going to an offense that with Jared Goff was in shotgun a ton. And we were going to have to figure out kind of what was going to happen with regards to all of that, whether or not we were going to see an increase because he didn't do a bunch of play action in Detroit. Are we going to see a bunch of play action in Los Angeles where we saw Jared Goff do all that play action? And at the time I thought yes, and maybe that wasn't going to be a great fit, but actually the answer was no, not a ton of play action. So those are kind of differences because like Murray is very much a shotgun quarterback, which O'Connell also is somewhat of a shotgun offensive coordinator, but not nearly to the extent that Murray was. Interesting point that was made on like the Cardinals subreddit that I read a couple of days ago. How drastically the under center and shotgun rates changed when Jacoby Brissett took over the offense. It very much seems like Drew Petzing wanted to run a certain style of offense and couldn't because of the limitations Murray had, which led to problems because they wouldn't run all that much or even all that effectively out of shotgun. And so they would run out of under center and they didn't have a high play action rate. So if you saw Murray under center, you had a pretty good tell that they were going to run the ball. And if you saw Murray in shotgun, you had a really good tell that they were going to throw the ball. Another thing to pay attention to. But yeah, I think at a kind of like a production level, those statistics are more similar than I would have expected them to be. But stylistically, the statistics that speak to a quarterback's play style, those are quite different.
Next question is from Zachary Attackery, who asks, what are the odds we keep Murray more than a year? If he plays well, what's the likelihood we keep McCarthy after his rookie contract is up?
Yeah, and also the next question from the Village Jackmonger.
Yep. Village Jackmonger also goes, if Kyler gets 14 wins as a starter but looks like Case Keenum doing it, do we pay full price to re-sign him? That's rough, but really, really fair.
Yeah, well, because you can see from the way Case Keenum played in 2017 and the way we understand Kyler to play, you can see how that would occur, right?
Oh, of course.
Like very easy to say, like incredible escapability, holding onto the ball maybe too long, scrambling out of pressure, and just throwing blind at receivers you couldn't see. Really outstandingly talented receiving core that's very good at contested catches. Hey, great defense. But Zimmer was like, hey, man, this guy's playing with brass balls. He's got a horseshoe over his door. He's very open about that kind of stuff. And you knew they weren't going to re-sign him, and they didn't, and it turned out to be the smart move. In that situation, probably they would let him walk again. But if they win 2 playoff games, I think they feel like they've locked themselves in because the whole reason they let Darnold walk is because he didn't win a playoff game. And it's like, well, all right.
Fine.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, the odds that they keep Murray for more than a year, if he plays well, I think you have to extend him at quarterback price, maybe $30 million, right? Should be probably on the low end of that. But yeah, I don't think that they can just be like, well, we got this first rounder. We already went through that. They don't have the latitude. Can you imagine that happening again, where if Kevin O'Connell gave the green light to let the quarterback walk in free agency, and then he just does anything? He does anything for any team, right? Like the Steelers grab him, right? And the Steelers make the playoffs.
Like, we saw the whole like Tua Kyler thing where you're paying for the for like next year sort of thing. Like we saw that like release coming a mile away.
Yeah.
Who's the next quarterback that potentially could happen to? Because if Kyler plays through for a year, ends up signing with, let's say, the Jets. Let's say Geno and the Jets don't work out. I know this is a stretch. Hold on.
Yeah, you just envision in your mind what that might look like, and I know that you gotta rotate the cube. You gotta rotate the cube and envision Geno Smith in a Jets uniform not working out.
Who's the next quarterback that potentially happens to as a potential Vikings quarterback in 2027?
Right. Well, so okay, I'm thinking like there's free agents and then there's guys who could get cut.
Yeah.
So like a free agent could be CJ Stroud, right? Who just has been good once. And he could get cut and maybe you couldn't sign him for minimum, but it'd be pretty cheap. But for a guy who's getting paid a lot that hasn't been playing well and could be cut after the next year. Well, okay. Well, I don't want this to happen. Let me be clear that this would be bad. But Deshaun Watson is a candidate for that, right?
I mean, it would have to be, but that's
because I think
how many years left does his contract exist?
Okay, now I'm looking this up. Actually, they might be stuck with him for 2 more years. Hold on.
Yeah. So
okay, if they post June 1st him after the 2026 season, they will not take on dead cap. But if they just straight up cut him, they do have a $50 million dead cap. So that's
remarkable.
Yeah, so they're stuck with him unless they post June 1st him. So Deshaun Watson is technically in that camp. I can't see Jalen Hurts doing it, but like that's on the table, I guess.
Yeah. Jalen Hurts would be a potential option for a year quarterback, for a year of Kevin O'Connell can fix him. I'd say Jalen Hurts would be an option. I'm trying to think. By that point, Stafford would be retired.
Sam Darnold would be funny.
Darnold would be very funny. Actually, it would be very funny. Would be Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. But like, there's way too much guaranteed for them to cut him after 1 year on this particular deal. That's the
if
he
doesn't
issue.
walk, if he doesn't like come out.
No. He just signed.
Oh, I know. No. I mean, like if he physically. Like, back, like, oh no, we're gonna do the Peyton thing. We're gonna have a year.
Yeah, we're gonna toll his contract. Actually,
yeah. That's a terrifying prospect to go down. Like, all right, so who's this year's? No.
I got the answer.
Oh,
Baker Mayfield.
Oh,
that's it. Yeah,
that's very interesting.
Right? Like
another number one.
Yeah, he had a great first half of this last year, and then it kind of dropped off. So you've got, enough built up, like enough poor play built up that a really bad 2026 could trigger, and his contract I think voids in 2027.
Interesting. So
like you could just pick him up, but he does have like 30 million in dead cap. So for the Buccaneers. So like there's you could, I don't know. There's like a lot of moving parts here, but I think Baker is the answer to this. Where like he's looked good twice. I think we can do it kind of stuff.
Oh, we could totally get ourselves convinced that Baker.
So you go from Kyler to Baker, just getting all the Oklahoma quarterbacks, right? You had Sam Bradford.
Yep.
Just get them all. And then Jalen after that.
Yes.
All the Oklahoma quarterbacks.
Let's go to Will Melvin, who asks, does the Kyler Murray signing make the Vikings more appealing to a prospective GM as it adds another quarterback option to move forward from the past with the upcoming season?
Actually, kind of, yeah, just because it's an asset and you can kind of work around with assets, and you've got an exclusive negotiating window over the course of the season to extend them if he plays well, which you do have to be careful with. Because remember, Ryan Fitzpatrick had those like 4 games with the Bills and they were like crazy. And then they signed him to this mega extension and he immediately crapped out. Like that is the part you do have to be careful of. Yeah.
That man parlayed. He's still parlaying things.
Yeah. Good for him.
Based on those 4 games. Good for him. Let's go to Big Algernon, who asks, if after training camp, JJ and Kyler are equal, probably a long shot, but if, who should be the starter? Kyler until he falls off, or JJ and keep Kyler healthy to recover the season, or swap every drive to keep things interesting and fun?
Well, obviously that's the answer, right? Like
we've talked before about whether or not we should have a quarterback closer. Like this is, this concept could work here. It's obviously JJ McCarthy in the fourth quarter, not for the first 3. Just the fourth quarter.
Just the fourth quarter. So that's clearly option 1A. I like you got to go with that option.
Yeah.
But if you have to roll with the same quarterback the whole game, like a nerd, nerd,
jumps,
soulless, soul-sucking, can't have fun loser, because one quarterback played the entire game.
No fun league.
I would go with Kyler because McCarthy has shown that he can do it in practice multiple times. I don't trust it. Kyler has at least had good games.
They're both injury prone as hell, but one of them will break when he sneezes. And
right.
That's kind of where I'm at. I like JJ McCarthy's play at times, but the man is broken. Or rather, sorry, he's paper. He's paper thin. He will crumble, and that's unfortunate. Seems like a nice guy. Eric Thompson asks, when's the soonest we can get a photo we can get Arif in a photo with Kyler to prove that both Murray and Mina Kimes are actually 6'6"?
It would be like the Shaq Simone Biles photo. I would be towering over them. That wouldn't be very fair.
It'd be awful. Elon Munch asks, should the Vikings trade JJ McCarthy for whatever picks they could get?
What picks could you get? You can't
could you get a third?
No. You can't. You get like he played like the worst quarterback, but not by the end of the year, but like through 6 games, he was the worst quarterback we had seen in over 2 decades. And then the Vikings were like, I don't know about this guy. And if your in-house team is like, I don't know about him, that's it. It's done. You're not getting picks for him. Sorry. This is not like a Josh Rosen situation, which I guess Kyler also did initiate. A Josh Rosen situation where like you do manage to extract some picks out of a trade. No, it's not. I don't think you get picks for him. I don't care that he's cost controlled. He's injury prone and distracted by having a child, which I guess was a thing, and bad, which is an important element to this whole thing.
It's worth noting that Sean Payton, noted douchebag, has recently talked about how much he likes the idea of dumpster diving for quarterbacks, dumpster diving for players in free agency.
Do you think Jarrett Stidham heard that and was like, hey, wait a minute?
No, but I know Bo Nix did, and they're having this really weird, awkward feud. There was some Bill Simmons thing where like it was like a YouTube short where he was talking about, it just occurred to me the other day that all of these things that Sean Payton has done, he might be a villain. And I just want to scream, you might be?
Come on, pay attention.
He's in open rebellion with his quarterback. Like, what are you talking about? I just know that Bo Nix probably heard that and went, yeah, are we gonna keep talking about that injury, that thing?
But like Bo Nix being offended by that would be interesting because you don't go dumpster diving and then find something you like and then go around to the front of the shop and ask if you can pay several $1 million for it. I mean, they invested a first-round pick in Bo Nix. I'm just curious about all.
We all laughed.
Yeah, I'm just curious about like the guys that he did get for cheap because he did call that like he was like, Jarrett Stidham, you are trash. I did find you. Thank you for the playoff win. Right?
Just, I mean, he did sign the Nooch. He brought DiNucci back for the playoff game. So, and he hates DiNucci.
In the spirit, he does.
Hated DiNucci.
In the spirit of like dumpster diving, that is a treasure that he did find.
He did.
In an unexpected place. So there's
fourth rounder from Denver for McCarthy, who says no other than Bo Nix. Brian asks, who wins the punting job? Do they bring back the dude that was in camp last season?
Oscar Chapman, I think. I don't know. There's not a punter on the roster, right? So who wins the punting job? A rookie or a veteran that no one likes? Yeah, there's no punter on the roster. Yeah, they'll probably draft a guy, which is a weird thing to say. And then also sign a guy, and then probably the guy they drafted wins. That's my guess.
Yeah. Nihilist Vikings fan asks, which team will Kyler Murray win the Super Bowl with in 2028?
The Pittsburgh Steelers. I already said it.
I was going to say Steelers or the Bears. Don't ask questions. Rabble Rouser asks, what's harder to fix, McCarthy's footwork or Murray's height?
Well, they do have leg lengthening surgery, right? So you have to go with McCarthy's footwork. That feels like a harder fix.
He watched the catch on the screen. That's my favorite part of that whole thing. It was an amazing play. His height is a bit of an issue.
Well, I'm just saying they have leg lengthening surgery. That is like you can just go in and lengthen someone's legs, and then they're out of commission for like 2 years. But it doesn't matter. You can fix the height thing.
Yeah. Faded Chemist Guy asks, is this the appropriate time to become a Seahawks fan?
Never.
That was like a month ago. 2 months ago.
Also, yeah, what a weird time to choose.
Yeah, it was clearly then. Sam Darnett asks, for our Reef's Horseshoe Theory Corner, Tyler Linderbaum just reset the entire center market with his new $81 million contract for the Raiders. However, we've also seen all 4 NFC North centers be released or forced into premature retirement this offseason. Does this mean that centerism, while financially lucrative in the short term, is not a sustainable ideology? I love this mailbag.
God dang. All right, so when I saw this question in the Discord, I said that this doesn't prove that, but it does prove that constantly changing your center is a key component of radical centrism. And that the Vikings are employing radical centrism by proving that you can just find new centers. They don't have to be good. Many centers are not good, it turns out, within the parameters of what this corner is suggesting. But it is always possible to change the center, which tells you that the center is not a fixed position in the same sense that people would like to believe, and in fact changes in response to conditions around us. And so centrism is not a coherent ideology, but rather a reaction to other coherent ideologies as they emerge in the public consciousness. Again, I'm talking about the football player.
Yes. That.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if each quarterback on the Vikings active roster was a video game console, which one would they be? Kyler is probably the easiest answer.
Well, he's an Xbox. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
But after that,
McCarthy gets weird because I want to say it's like a Switch 2 where it was sold as this like it kind of like delayed. It was because it was delayed to market because of tariffs that they're suing the government over. Love that, but was being brought in, and like it's a bit of a disappointment, quite honestly. It's not that big of like a graphical thing. Like it's fine, but like you can do better a lot of different ways. And it turns out the guy that was there before, the Switch 1, probably better.
So I'm going to go with the PSP Vita.
Interesting.
The tools were there. Mm-hmm. The hardware was fine, but it was put together pretty poorly. It didn't make sense. It no one liked it. It was a failure. Why did you enter this market? And then got succeeded by the Nintendo Switch and the Steam Deck. There is no successor to the Vita line, and it's just an abject failure within the PlayStation universe, right? So like PlayStation has had some legendary consoles. They've had their Tom Brady's, right? Just like Michigan. And they also have the Vita. So I'm going to go with that. Max Brosmer's a Commodore 64.
I was thinking it was either actually, you know what? I wrote down the wrong thing. I wrote down Sega Saturn, but you know what? That's unfair to the Sega Saturn.
That is unfair to the Sega Saturn. Come on.
Max Brosmer was a Virtual Boy. The red, it was so incredibly difficult to watch. You kind of got sick while doing it. And that Seahawks game was just the worst. Carson Wentz, however, is a broken NES with the front flap like broken off and yellowed. But like, if you blew into the console, or if you blew into the thing, like
it's still good. It's still good.
Somehow, it would just like the top is like falling off, but like you press it in just right. Oh, hey, he was able to complete another pass.
Right, like you inject it with Toradol / take a Q-tip full of alcohol and just like scratch off the dirt on like the final like pin that's working. And it's like, yeah, we could probably get this going for another 20 minutes.
Yep, we can absolutely play Blades of Steel right now. Yeah,
we're like good to play the 1998 Nagano Olympics.
I'm gonna sit here and be frustrated as hell trying to play this stupid underwater level of the Turtles game.
Jesus Christ! Yeah, putting Carson Wentz into the underwater.
Yep. Carson is every time he goes through the little electric shocking thing, like you just feel for him so bad.
Yeah, this is like the Double Dragon Battletoads level, yep. where you have to go through all those pointy logs, and you just have to just know what's happening beforehand. You can't react.
To our younger listeners who are unaware, the way that Nintendo used to do gaming was that you could either
punish you for the act of play.
It would be a situation of, we're going to this is going to be a game with like great graphics and like do this, or on the flip side, it was going to be the most difficult thing you've ever accomplished in your entire life. There was a scale that would slide. And in this particular instance, these are the highlights of the worst and best NES games. But yes, that's absolutely the case.
Yeah, and the games that would punish you were the ones that were remembered maybe most fondly. Is the interesting element that comes out of this.
That Turtles game rules.
It was awesome. It's still good.
It's also one of the most difficult things on the planet. Like, it is going through that water level without dying. No, you can't beat that Battletoads thing on one life. Like, it doesn't work. Oh my God. All right. Let's keep going. Longing for a Crippled Carson Wentz asks, has Kevin O'Connell learned to mold plays to his quarterback? I'm still dubious.
I don't think that that's the thing that he does. I think that it's fair to say that you're dubious about it, because I don't think that is his approach. I think his approach is to maximize the quarterback's ability within a system that just happens to be more efficient than most systems across the NFL. I think he does a really good job teaching quarterbacks. I think he does a really good job communicating with quarterbacks. I think he does a great job figuring out within the confines of his offense what a quarterback does well and using that, right? Like, he would use play action more with Joshua Dobbs, right? But he still is like, I've got Justin Jefferson. This guy wins 22-yard routes every day, all day. I'm going to do that. Why wouldn't I do that? And then he does that. So, yeah, I don't think that he molds the offense that much to quarterbacks. I would also suggest that most coaches don't do that as much as you think they do. So it's not a huge knock on him. I think that he finds ways to adapt the structure of the offense to fit the parameters of what his quarterback does, which is why McCarthy was more efficient in the final 3 games of the season when they were just like, well, these middle of the field throws are just not happening, so let's just get rid of them. But like, it was still the offense, and it was still the system, right? It was still like a drop back timing, whatever. But I think that within, like, he doesn't change the offense, but he changes the way the offense executes for the quarterback, and I think he does that pretty well.
Also, longing from a crypt before he build Carson Wentz. Whatever, I'll slur that. Top 5 punter prospects from the consensus big board we should keep our eyes on. I have a feeling we'll be answering that one a lot over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, probably. When that happened, Katzen, who is a sicko and knows a ton about special teams, did like DM me like, hey, watch out for this punter that you're going to draft in the 5th round. I don't remember his name anymore, but like, so I got an immediate piece of feedback from somebody who writes for Wide Left about a punter to watch for in the draft. I wonder if I could like find it in. Well, we know how good Twitter search is, so
yeah,
clearly
this will go well.
Yeah.
While you're having fun attempting to look that up, the question is journalism better with live markets? Which is a quote from Polymarket. We're going to start to go off the rails here with some real fun stuff here. But Polymarket had the quote, "Journalism is better when it's backed by live markets." As someone who is a self-described journalist, what do you think about that quote?
So the quote comes from the partnership that Polymarket has with Substack, which I hate that situation. Sure is. I have had people reach out to me and like, hey, are you going to leave Substack because of this? And I just want to let you know, I've been exploring that for a little bit, for well before this happened. But like, there are a couple of things that actually make that potentially financially devastating. So I'm not going to go into that willy-nilly, but I am figuring that out proactively. 1. 2, the best way that I can imagine that quote meaning anything at all, which the article that you put in the show notes from the Neiman Lab, which is an outstanding, I believe they're a nonprofit, an outstanding nonprofit, kind of like Pointer, for journalism, very professional. Their like subhead is, "We don't know what that means," and they reached out to Polymarket and Substack. What does this quote mean? Neither of them got back to them, but I would have to imagine that the best way to justify this bad quote that I don't agree with, the best way to get there would be to assume that Polymarket operates like in a vacuum independent of like the news itself and is not subject to insider trading. So like 2 obviously true assumptions that you don't have to worry about. Don't think about it too hard. In that world, Polymarket and Kalshi and a bunch of these, they make the argument that the wisdom of the crowds, betting markets, are very good at determining probabilities and information. And Pablo Torre recently had the author of the phrase wisdom of the crowds, the guy who invented the phrase wisdom of the crowds, that professor, brought him in for an interview for the Pablo Torre Finds Out podcast. And that guy was like, "That's not what I meant." That's not what I meant at all. But if we ignore that, the idea that betting markets are good at determining the probabilities of uncertain events that require enormous amounts of information to ingest comes from their ability to do a very good job in the sports world, right? They can predict the lines of games. They can do a really good job figuring out the probabilities that a team will win or lose, whatever, right? Now, sports is primarily a closed system. There are a ton of variables that go into why teams win or lose games. But there are like an infinite amount of variables that go into the stuff that produces the news, as it were, right? And so the idea is that Polymarket represents a marker by which news organizations like CNN or people who do newsletters through Substack could say, hey, we don't know if this is going to happen, but Polymarket has a price that suggests that there's a 67% chance that this is going to happen. And so we're going to treat it like it is somewhat likely. That's kind of what they're getting across, that it is communicating a truth value about whether or not you can successfully escort an oil tanker through the Strait of Hormuz, which you could bet on that, I guess. There's a 5% chance, according to Polymarket, that Jesus is going to come back this year and bring about like the Judgment Day or whatever, his resurrections. I don't know Christianity. I don't know if you can tell.
I know ball.
The Easter Bunny has a cross necklace or something, and that means Jesus is back, I think. Back in a big way.
Big if true. You know, yeah. I did see that if we just raise the oceans 150 meters, we'll be fine. We don't have to worry about the Strait of Hormuz. It'll be fine.
Yeah. See, the climate change will solve the Strait problem, and then also you don't have to solve the Strait problem because of the resurrection. So,
yeah,
5% chance. That's pretty high.
So write that down.
Jot that down.
Jot that down. I'm glad we were able to touch on the whole It's so dumb, and like the Substack thing. It's just like what on earth does that sentence actually? It's terrifying. I'm glad that you're enjoying the fact that that's something happening with your or something happening with your Substack, but just Substack in general. Damian Barrett asks, was Naylor cut to free up Kyler's jersey number? There's a conspiracy.
He wasn't cut. He's a free agent.
He's a free elf, damn it. Tank B asks, is Kyler the shortest Vikings quarterback in the history of the team?
I'm not looking that up. Yes, he is.
Follow-up, does Kyler have the best KD ratio in the history of the Vikings?
I mean, it's not necessarily easy to become a member of FaZe Clan, so I'm going to go with yes, but I don't want to overstate how good FaZe Clan is at stuff. Like they're not like a serious part of the esports community. They're content creators. So I just put that out there.
At some point you just transition, because we talked about this a while ago about the whole like FaZe Clan thing. So wow, I'm remembering something from a show from like 2 years ago. Good Lord.
Yeah, I can't remember anything from shows like last week. So interesting. Yeah.
Sweet. The logic, you have nothing going on at 10 tonight. I just want you to know you're right, fine. Go to bed. You're fine. Mm-hmm. What could possibly go wrong? The logic dump asks, what is the next Call of Duty release date? And which are the best and worst teams to be paired against the week after the release?
Oh, yeah. He does worse on those weekends. That is important. Yeah, whenever there's a COD DLC, that like results in a dip in his play, but also it tends to happen around November, and he just does poorly in the second half of seasons. So I don't know like what it is. It might not actually be that, but watch out for November. I don't know. I haven't looked up the actual Call of Duty release dates. All I just know is that sometimes something drops in November, whether it is a big patch, a DLC, a new game. I think that happens typically in December. So watch out.
Yeah. I would prefer not to play Green Bay at that point, because apparently that's Toyotathon. So
right, you can't combine Toyotathon with like a new DLC, like a COD whatever edition we're in, Zombies Edition 4. That we'd be screwed.
No. Bob the Bolsharif asks, for Arif's Sins of the Father Corner, how much schadenfreude is appropriate to feel over the failure of J.J. McCarthy in light of the misdeeds of the staff of the Michigan football team he was a product of? Did you see the coach got off? Basically,
I mean, in a sense, for sure he got off, but
but in the legal sense,
Sharon Moore got off.
Yes,
I did not see that. That's insane. So I just Googled Sharon Moore, and the headline I received was, what to know about Paige Shiver, the woman accusing ex-media. I don't feel good about that. I want to know why he
pled no contest to 2 misdemeanors.
Well, no, yeah, that's okay.
Just remarkable. After everything that had happened through all of that, grabbing the butter knife and threatening, all of that.
Yeah. Okay, sure. I don't know that it makes sense to hold McCarthy accountable for all of that nonsense. Now, if the Chargers do poorly and you're like, Harbaugh, take that, that makes sense, I think, because he plays a role in that. But like McCarthy's just a guy.
Yeah. Ice Delonda Est asks, question for Arif's relationship corner. Now that you started a podcast with Luke Braun and left James while he is crippled with back pain, is it fair to say that you are Newt Gingrich, James is Jackie Batty, and Luke is Marianne in this podcasting switcheroo situation?
Okay, I'm old. I'm not that old.
That's well, again, we haven't said it this year yet. Your median age in the 90s was 7. So.
Right. Yeah. I relate more to the what was the Democratic primary guy, Edwards, right?
Oh, Jesus.
You like this, like one of the Carolinas, this really charming, kind of handsome.
This does not go well for you. Don't if you don't remember the stuff about Jonathan. Oh no,
Jonathan Edwards. Yeah. Edwards. That was it.
You are referencing the Jonathan Edwards thing. Okay, never mind.
Yes,
never mind.
That's what I mean.
Go for it. All right.
Yeah, and I think his wife got like cancer or something like that, and he was like, "I am out of here. Yep. I am cheating so much."
Oddly enough, not an uncommon thing that happens statistically. It's bizarre. But yeah, he's a terrible human being.
Yeah, for sure. You don't want to walk this road, Arif? No, that's exactly what I'm referencing.
I'm trying to stop you. I'm trying my best to, like, Arif, don't go down that road. All right, go for it. Oh, it's the exact one you wanted to. Fantastic.
Oh my God, the extramarital affair has its own wiki page. That's so nice.
Yeah, why would it not? Deez asks, is Kyler growing up a Vikings fan a good or a bad thing? Also, how far behind Brandell and Shotgun is he going to have to need to stand so there isn't a safety on every snap attempt?
Okay, so I think the only way to solve this problem is to have Brandell snap better, because otherwise you do have to position Kyler further back than the punter is. Like, do you see how far that thing went when he misfired? Like, that went way back. So you have to field it like 11 yards back. Maybe more, right? 11 yards back, and then you have to run closer to the line of scrimmage to throw it. So that's probably where you have to be, and that's not a good thing.
At least he's fast and can get the ball.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
He's got reflexes. Look, he can be a world class. What was it? Tennis star? 3 years.
3 years. No, right? Be Nadal in 3 years. Yeah, and then is Kyler growing up a Vikings fan a good thing or a bad thing? I'm gonna go bad. I feel like you need to bring as little of the curse with you as possible, I guess.
Wentz brought as much as he could. Yeah. And look how that ended for him.
Yeah, he's in multiple pieces right now. Like that's not where you want to be. Get somebody who grew up a Patriots fan or something like that. We don't need that.
Yeah. Deez asks, also, for Arif's Sumo Corner, what are your thoughts on the current March Basho, and what'd you get me for my birthday the other day?
Okay, first of all, happy birthday. Second, I got you not an answer to this question. I'm not looking. I'm done. I can't keep looking up.
We're done with the Sumo Corner. It finally ended March 12th, 8:02 p.m. The Sumo Corner died. What a run.
That was quite a run, actually. Was it a 2-year run or just the one?
It was a 2-year run.
Yeah.
What a run. Mao Kiper Jr. And I know that's I wrote it in here wrong, but it is Mao Kiper Jr. How does Arif feel about finally being taller than the Vikings starting quarterback? You've been taller than quarterbacks for years.
I've been taller than every Vikings quarterback.
Yeah, it's canon. Kate asks for Arif's Huntrix corner. Which Huntrix member is most like James? Oh my god.
Probably Rumi because she's half demon. Spoilers for K-pop Demon Hunters.
Which is more just spoiler for me, I guess, because eventually I'm gonna have to watch that stupid.
Yeah. Because Mira is too like cold and closed off, and like the kind of mean that you are is not the kind of mean that Mira is. I guess is what I'm trying to communicate. And Zoe's always happy. So I think by default that makes you Rumi. Plus Rumi does like a ton of like background work too. And as we both know, you are the star of the show. Obviously. One of the things that the K-pop community commented on, which is a great fact that I can say that sentence, is how much, if they were a real K-pop band, how much drama that they would cause. Apparently K-pop fans like track what percentage of lines you speak in every song. And if like one of the members of the band doesn't have like a proportionally good share, that's like a huge problem. And Rumi like has like 70% of the lines in all these songs, just like you do in this podcast.
Yes. That, you know what? People often say I speak too much on the show.
Right. Well, we have seen that.
Yeah. Well, let's go to a corner here. Leon Stamp Ada Simp asks for James's furniture corner. What's your ideal chair to listen to other podcasts like Locked On Vikings After Dark?
You know, they weren't saying this when I was on the Squad Show. I don't.
No. No. See, when you leave me for 4 people, it's different. But when you leave me for one, then people are like, well, this is clearly not just a lifestyle choice. This is something else.
We've spent so long in this podcast talking about how there are some models of, let's say, friendships that allow you to explore all of the different manners and varieties of friendships that exist out there. And not every friend provides the same thing to everybody, right? Some of my friends want to talk about K-pop Demon Hunters. Some of my friends want to talk about football. Some of my friends hate football and want to talk about whatever is poisoning me on Twitter, right? They all serve different purposes. I can talk to some friends about my problems and receive support, and I can talk to other friends about my problems and get roasted for them. It's just different models of friendship. And that's okay to recognize that one friend can't provide everything you need in a friendship. And so you go out and you make new friends and you have different friendships with all of them in ways that are fulfilling and useful and fun. And friends don't have to get jealous about that. So that we spent so much, and now suddenly there's another, again, I haven't called it a podcast. It's a show. I'm live streaming. If Luke decides to turn that into a podcast, that's on him. But I'm on another show and suddenly, I can't make friends? Well, this isn't a friendship. It's an analogy. I can't have new antagonists?
It's a tortured analogy.
Right. Because it's a layered analogy on something else, which is also the analogy for this.
It's a riddle wrapped in an enigma, wrapped in torturing Luke Braun. Realistically, look, if you really like my opinion on the show, I've known for months this was coming, and I was so happy that like it finally launched. So good. I'm happy, and that the fact that like I don't have to do a thing about it, it's great. You guys enjoy the show. This all sounds fun. I think that a fine recliner with again, smoking jackets are going to be required,
right,
for all of this, but a nice fine recliner, the kind you would not see in a $150 a night hotel. would have to be it'd be a slightly higher price point.
Right,
for
and
the good recliner.
Certainly better than any furniture you'd see in a per-hour hotel.
Exactly. Anya Taylor-Joy asks, for a Reef's After Dark corner, what was the best Pac-12 After Dark game? I'm partial to our own Sean Mannion's win over ASU in 2014.
I feel like Mountain West After Dark is even better. I think like one of these like Colt Brennan Hawaii games just went crazy.
God, yeah. Like, where it's like 11 o'clock and it's the second quarter.
Yeah, and, right. Yeah. And he's already thrown for 300 yards.
Yup. I can never differentiate them because it's always like some random Wednesday or a Thursday. And it's like 11:30 at night. No one in the country is watching except for the bar that still has that game on from earlier.
Yeah, and the entire state of Hawaii, and that's it.
Yes, and that's it. And they are so proud of their Rainbow Warriors. Yeah, absolutely. Also from Anya Taylor-Joy, for our Reef's Academy Awards corner, what are the best and worst reasons Sinners won't win Best Picture? I suppose the worst reason ends up being racism, but what's the best reason?
Reverse racism.
Oh. I can't say I saw that coming.
Yeah.
Finally, longing for a crippled Carson Wentz asks, question for a Reef's Revenge corner. Mm-hmm. One of my good friends was abandoned by his longtime partner of 12 years while he was recovering from hospitalization for a member of the friend's D&D group. How would you recommend my friend get revenge on his ex-partner, and how should my friend get revenge on the D&D trader his ex-partner is now with? If you missed last episode, it's worth noting that I had described my medical ordeal and had started with the fact that Arif didn't know, which was that I had the night I got hurt, I was playing D&D with Luke Braun over Zoom or over Discord. So that's the context here. So how does one get revenge out of this?
Okay, so one thing that many people might not know about is that the friend that's being described in the new friend in town that's being described, the one that was in the D&D group that initiated this kind of betrayal, was also in a D&D group with the person who left their friend at the in the hospital.
Arif was a part of this particular group at one point.
Yeah, and the character that that you might call the abandoner, the character that this person played, canonically in the story starts off with having cheated on his wife. and they find out at the climax of the fight that he cheated on his wife with the villain of that arc.
Yep.
So it's turtles all the way down, I guess is what I'm getting at. One thing to note, my character is immortal, if I remember correctly. So
it died a horrible death.
No! Yeah, I'll come back.
You weren't there.
I wasn't there for that part. I was taking a walk. I don't know. I don't remember.
I suppose these things happen.
Yeah, in my recollection, the character is canonically immortal. So there's not really a great way to take revenge in traditional senses, but like an immortal person is probably the easiest person to torture in history. So
probably, but you tend to think that you yourself are canonically immortal.
Well, I am. That's hold on. We don't have to use the word I just am. Weird way to put it.
I'm glad we got an episode title. That's gonna be it for this episode of Norse Code. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. We will be back soon with more, I suppose, Kyler news, but we'll be back as the off season progresses. Arif, what do you have to plug?
So there's a new podcast.
Oh, come 2 hours in. You're like, okay, fine. I'm just going to call it what it is. It's a podcast. You know what? I did this in the Discord. I'm going to do it now. Arif watches anime.
That's not true.
Him not watching it and like
stumbling. You're just saying that because you're mad.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely 100%. Arif watches it more than most people. Absolutely. Has opinions on all of these things. Probably even has a Crunchyroll
you're talking about. And there's not like a way you can know that to be true anyway. You can't verify that. So you're just like spreading rumors.
No, this is absolutely.
Because you're mad.
Whatever. Arif watches anime. Arif, plug your stuff. Plug your. This is absolutely.
It's crazy that as a relationship ends, you just spread these unfounded rumors about the person. Oh my God! Die in a fire. That is crazy. Now I'm going to name the podcast Happy. Anyway, I'm on another show. It's Locked On Vikings After Dark. We go live Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, which is today, at 10 p.m. Central. And just kind of chill and hang out is the idea. Like, technically, we do talk about football. But that's, like, not the point. Think about it as the 10 minutes before and the 20 minutes after James says, hey, we're about to go off the rails in the mailbag. That's the whole podcast. And that's that. Over at Why Left Off Football, I've got a piece coming out from Alex Katzen that will compare a player in the draft to a tunnel in Tajikistan. Watch out for that. Also, I'm going to have a piece about Kyler Murray and his potential quote-unquote fit with the team. We'll see what that looks like. And later on this year, I assume either Matt or Luke will write a film breakdown, which is going to look a little bit different than my piece on Kyler. So we'll see kind of what that looks like. Other than that, and then I've got a really fun quarterback piece coming from a writer that's written for the site before, Kevin. So hopefully, Kevin said he was going to finish 2 days ago, so I should yell at him. But we've got that piece coming up too, where quarterbacks talk about like the things that they like to do the least. So a lot of stuff over Wide Left Out Football. Check it out.
That is it for this episode. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. For Arif, my name is James. Thank you guys so much for listening. And please remember that you never want to go double Ngakwe. And we will see you soon. Norse Code is the largest and only division of Norse Code LLC. You can find Norse Code on the Daily Norseman, SB Nation's Vikings blog at dailynorseman.com. You can also find it on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, and wherever fine podcasts are aggregated. Our Vikings blogger extraordinaire and generally useful human is Arif Hassan of... and he can be found on Twitter at Arif Hassan NFL. I am your producer and host, and my name is James Pagashnik. You can find me at the show's official Twitter feed at NorseCodeDN or at my personal account at Big Mono. If you'd like to donate a few bucks to the show, you can do so in a couple of different ways. You can go to patreon.com/NorseCode and donate there. For $3.50 a month, you get bonus material and more. You can also go to paypal.me/NorseCode for a one-time donation, or you can go to norsecode.threadless.com and pick up some Norse Code merch. Any questions or comments that cannot fit in a tweet can be sent to norsecodepodcast@gmail.com. On behalf of the Norse Code staff, we thank you so much for listening.
Our formula is this.
Hey, all things are possible through the power of Ben DiNucci.